President. Mr. President, I noticed in your speech you mentioned many times about ASEAN centrality. Review the TAC, which your father signed, that showed the bond of ASEAN. I think the ASEAN centrality is very important, but it's not. We cannot take it for granted. It comes from the ASEAN way. Three principles. First, mutual respect. Second, consensus building. Third,
demand
considerate
for
other
respect pero
parties'
tayo hindi nila nire-respeto
comfort level.
ang soberanya
In my
nito.
words, to put it
So,
simply,
demand
we
for
can
respect.
summarize it as three no's. No intervention, and no use of force, and no happy hot spots. Only because of these principles strictly followed by ASEAN members and other stakeholders that we have ensured the ASEAN and East Asia at large for a long-lasting peace since the end
Wait,
of the
long-lasting
colonial
peace?
rule
What?
in
What did
history.
you say?
So we cherish a lot. I fully agree with you. I support the
Only
centrality
China
of
ang
ASEAN. And even
nagsinisira
some
ng
professor like
peace ng katahimikan sa Asia.
Casual Makboni, he suggests ASEAN is deserved to award a Nobel Peace Prize. I agree with him.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, deserve. Talagang deserve ng Asian ng peace.
My question is, President,
Pero
in the
sinisira
eyes
ng
of the
China
international community,
ang
some
katahimikan
of
dito
your
sa Asia.
Philippines behavior in
Only China.
recent times, it now sounds like you really considered other parties' comfort level, and there is a risk of ruining
Some of
the regional
Philippine behavior.
long-earned, long-lasting peace since the end of the colonialist history. What's your comments on that? Thank you very much.
What? Harmful level,
cannot
So,
imagine what you must be
binabaliktad ba ng
referring to
China
if
yung
the reference or the
yung,
allusion is to
ginagawa
the
nila,
Philippines
President Marcos.
somehow tearing apart
Nagtatawa na si President
what we
Marcos.
have agreed on with in ASEAN in terms of ASEAN
I-demand
centrality.
kasi ng
Quite the
long-lasting
contrary.
peace, pero
I think if you
sila ang sumisira
examine
ng
more
katahimikan
closely
ng
the
peace.
remarks that I just made, I precisely focus on ASEAN centrality, and that the principles that are laid down that are involved in the concept of ASEAN centrality are some things that we must use to guide us. And if we have been distracted in the past years or so, then it's time for us to return and remember once again what ASEAN was created for. And that is to create an
What ASEAN created
aggregation
for.
of nations that have very many common interests, and that can be, and that partnerships within that multilateral organization can help each other and help the region. And so the Philippines is still remains true to the principles that were established and upon which ASEAN was born. And I think, as I
Still
said,
remain in the principle
many of these
of
things
Asian.
we no longer speak of today, but we must, because they are as relevant today as they ever were, perhaps even more so, because the global situation is a great deal more complicated than it used to be before. I would even go far as to say there is no such thing as a regional issue any longer. We have all experienced the unexpected effects of the war in Ukraine, of the conflict in the Middle East, and all of these. And when we talk about the South China Sea, we have to also remember that the South China Sea is the passageway for half of the world trade, and therefore the peace and stability of the South China Sea and the freedom of navigation of the South China Sea is a world issue. And that is what I am proposing, and I am saying that
the
this is
freedom of
a regional
of
issue,
South China
but
Sea
we must
is
examine and be
not
part of the discussion.
Asian
We must
issue.
include
not only
all
Asian
parties
issue,
in that discussion,
but
because
the world
now
issue,
it is not
the
just
world
ASEAN member states
issue.
or stakeholders, and it is quite easy to see that it is in fact the entire world that have become stakeholders in the peace and stability of our region.
Thank you. I'll take one question. Yes, you, sir, with your hand up. If you stand up, it might attract magnetically a microphone towards you. Thank you very much. And immediately after your question, once you've identified, we'll take both. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John. It's Dimitri Sevastopoulos from the Irish delegation of two
Irish
people.
delegate.
Another small country. President Marcos, I'm going to ask you a very direct question, if you don't
Natawa ako
mind,
dito sa
which
part
is,
na ito. Kasi
if
yung
Chinese
question
Coast Guard water cannons
ng
killed
Chinese
a
general
Filipino sailor,
is
would that
parang
cross a red line?
counterpart
And then can you
dito
also
sa
give us a
question ng
sense of
Irish
what are the
delegation na
actions
ito?
that would trigger
Na
a
parang,
request from Manila to Washington
kasi
to
sa
invoke
question ng
US
general,
Philippines
parang
Mutual Defense Treaty?
pinapalabas niya, nakawawa sila na parang binubuli sila or ng Pilipinas. So dito sa part na ito,
If you could
parang
stand, I know
ang
you
question
sought
ng
the
isang
floor,
Irish general
and if a
na
microphone
kung
would
meron
come to
daw
you,
isang
you're right
Filipino
over there.
or Filipino
Thank you.
citizen or Filipino sailor
And the
na
President
mamatay
will
or
then
masaktan
answer
sa ginagawa ng
those
China
questions.
Coast Guard.
Thank you. You're one of
Yung nga,
our
ayun,
young leaders
counterpart ito
from
ng question
ASEAN.
ng
So please
general.
go ahead.
Magandang
Oh,
gabi, Mr.
Pilipino.
President. Good evening, Mr. President. My question relates to your vision for the force posture of the Philippines by the end of your term. So the Philippines has always discussed that the defense of our national
Para sa
territory
akin,
is
no, para sa
primarily
akin,
our
na
responsibility
yung part ng
under
question
the
ni
unilateral
Brother,
defense plan. So what specific
hindi-
force packages are you eyeing
hindi dapat
particularly in the next coming years?
kinisyon
And what
kasi
exactly
Pilipino naman siya.
are we to
Hindi na
expect
dapat
after
kinisyon yan
Horizon
dahil
3 of the AFP
Virtual
modernization
Summit,
program?
may mga
Thank
iba-ibang
you.
bansa dyan. So,
It's,
malalaman nila yung mga plano ng
the
gobyerno
gentleman is
natin
referring to the Horizon
about sa
3
Horizon.
acquisition program. It's the acquisition
maglilik agad
program
yung
that
information doon.
our Department of National Defense has just completed. Then we are presently in the process of finding suppliers for all the different
Parang nagbigay na tayo ng impormasyon
that
sa
we have
kalaban.
to build up our capabilities in the armed forces of the Philippines, and that we are hoping that these acts are just a deterrence, and we, as they say, to work for peace, prepare for war, and it is an unfortunate truth. But and that is why we have undertaken this long-term. It has been going on for many years now. This long-term plan of increasing the capabilities of our military and our civilians, such as the Coast Guard in the Philippines. To go back to the first question, what would happen if there was an incident that ended up killing a Filipino serviceman, be they a Coast Guard or in the military and part of the Navy? Well, that would be that would certainly increase the level of response, and if by a willful act on a Filipino, not only serviceman, but even a Filipino citizen, if a Filipino citizen is killed by a willful act, that is, I think, very, very close to what we define as an act of war, and therefore we will respond accordingly. And our treaty partners, I believe, also hold that same standard for when the actions with the joint action will be undertaken in support of any
Dito nabilib ang mga
any such
Pilipino
incident
sa
in the
sagot ni
Philippines.
President Marcos about dito sa if ever magkaroon ng TIA o killing action sa ating military or sa civilian community,
or otherwise,
sa civilian
have been
natin.
killed. But once we get to that point, that is certainly, we would have crossed the Rubicon. certainly cross the Rubicon. Is that a red line? Almost certainly it's going to be a red line.
Red line.
Mr. President, you have helped us to set the agenda. You have provoked our thinking. You spurred us to action. That is the keynote speech that we needed.